Shalom. I'm Rabbi Richard Address, and welcome to Seekers of Meaning, the podcast arm of Jewish Sacred Aging. We thank you very, very much for joining us on today's edition of our podcast and TV. If you'd like to touch base with us, give us some ideas, suggestions, comments, just email me at rabbiaddress@jewishsacredaging.com. And as you know, these podcasts in many ways are designed to discuss the implications of the revolution on longevity that our community and our congregations and organizations are living through right now. And it is to that end that we welcome to our microphone and camera Rabbi Chuck Kroloff, the emeritus rabbi of Temple Emanu-El in Westfield, New Jersey, here to talk about his new book, recently published, Open Our Eyes, Moments That Shape Our Lives, conveniently available on through the great God Amazon. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Chuck, welcome. Thank you for joining us. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for inviting me. Richie, it's a joy to be with you on your very special podcast.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. So, Open Our Eyes. You begin this book, Moments That Shape Our Lives. It's a compendium of, I guess it's safe to say, thoughts, reflections, comments on your life as a rabbi. You talk in the beginning about the influence of a song from Jeff Klepper. For many of you who perhaps are watching or listening to this know Jeff and Danny's work. But you also quote the great Rabbi Heschel, talking about reflecting on our lives and the goal of living a life of radical amazement. I'm struck by that quote. It's one of my favorite quotes. What do you mean by that? How do you interpret that phrase, radical amazement, in your life?
Well, thanks for asking that. Let me start by saying that I've studied that passage and Heschel over 50 or more years in philosophy and in teaching Jewish texts. And as I retired and aged, it became more and more meaningful. We all have moments. We all experience moments over a lifetime. Some of those moments are very significant, quite major, and many of them appear small, but are impactful. What I've tried to do is read and hear Heschel in a way that it helps me look at those moments, the moments that occurred in my life and our listeners' lives as well, of course. They bring into sharp focus what is important to us in our lives. Looking at moments and be radically amazed by what they can teach us, sometimes insignificant ones, sometimes much more so. And if I may, Richie, I just refer to the first anecdote that I offer, which resonates with lots of readers. I've heard lots of comments about it. When I was a young boy growing up in the south side of Chicago, I was about 7 or 8 years old, and my friends and I would play outside, and the Buick automobile had this emblem on it on the front. You may remember it as a circle with a little bullet-like figure coming through it, and they were very loose, and they fell off so easily. just slipped off. We kind of collected. Some of my friends collected. One day I picked one up. Well, I didn't exactly pick it up. I eased one off the top of a Buick. I eased it off.
You liberated it.
You separated it. It came off very easily. It was going to fall off anyhow. And I put it on my dresser. My father came home that evening, and he looked at it. What is this, Chuck? And I said, well, it was this Buick mascot that came off so easily. It's out there. He said, well, it doesn't belong to you. That's stealing. And I said, everybody's doing it. 5 or 6 of my friends all have them. Everybody's doing it. It doesn't make any difference, he said, whether everybody's doing it. That's stealing. Tomorrow morning, I want you to take it, try to find who it belongs to and take it back to them. offered to pay any damages. I was embarrassed. I was reluctant, but I did that, and I never forgotten that. And later on in rabbinical school, I studied Exodus chapter 23, verse 2. Do not follow a multitude to do evil. I was following a multitude of 7-year-olds to do a little thing that wasn't right. What's interesting to me is I've gotten about a dozen letters or comments from friends and from readers that I didn't know who shared with me a similar instance in their life, the little thing that they did, and how that really amazing moment helped to guide them when later on they may have been tempted to do something that was not quite right. So that's a full answer, I hope, to radical amazement.
So let me, this concept of radical amazement and Heschel's concept of awe and wonder, it's getting very, very difficult in the world in which we live to conceptualize or even, I think, live that. As you know, things are so overwhelming. We're in such a state of transition. You write a couple of sections within the book about faith, and in one of them, the power of a religious community. So, given all the stuyot, craziness, jummling, whatever the correct, not untranslatable words are, you remain, it's obvious as you read through the book, steadfastly in the corner of saying the power of faith and the power of a religious community to shepherd you or to show you this concept of awe and amazement. Walk me through that. How do you explain that?
Well, first of all, I want to offer the caveat that it's not a straight line. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 1 step forward, 2 steps, 3 steps back, and then I hope 4 steps forward. I hope we're moving forward. I think of Martin Luther King's, well known to your listeners, not originally with King, but he made it famous that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. It's a slow bend. So what I've done is I've thought back on the times when religious community has made a difference, such as when as I boarded a bus in 1963, in August of 1963, with members of my early congregation to attend the March on Washington. That was a moment of of the power of the religious community. And then fast forward, when a friend of mine in the congregation invited me to partner with him in trying to raise the educational hopes and aspirations of young students who were at a disadvantage. We mobilized the religious community to support our program, I Have a Dream, which I write about, which helped 55 students in low-income area near us to go on to post-secondary education. It was the power of the religious community. And then with the attack on Roe v. Wade and the end of that protection and the power of religious community in asserting, and this of course is an ongoing effort. We're still in the middle of that. I have seen again and again on a local level, sometimes regional and national, but usually local, the power of community and the impact that it has on individuals and on social policy. So that's that's awesome, and it's hopeful, but it's a tough fight.
Is the synagogue, Chuck, still the only major institution in the Jewish world that makes Jews, as several people have commented?
Yeah. I don't think it is. No, there are other ways of doing it. I I see camping, Jewish camping, as major impact. Of course, Jewish camping gets a tremendous boost and injection by the synagogue, but the synagogue isn't the only source, of course, of Jewish camping. But that's certainly major. Um, there's Hillel, obviously, but Hillel's only on at the age of college. I believe that the synagogue is still the central institution of the Jewish people. I'm convinced of that. But we have allies. We have lots of allies, and we need to work as closely as we can together to accomplish what we yearn for.
Yeah, and I know the camping, because you write about Blue Star and
Yeah,
some of the um, some of the impact, with the major impact of that on not only you but so many of our colleagues who came up through either the camping movement of the Union or Ramah, the conservative movement, had a profound impact on them.
if I can interrupt, I met my wife Terry there, and Richie, as recently as yesterday at 6 o'clock, I was spending some time with a 13-year-old kid, our next door neighbor, who's going to be bar mitzvah this Shabbat, and I asked him about what was influencing him, what was important to him as a Jew, and I think the first or second thing that came out of his mouth was his Jewish camp.
Oh
Right?
no, there's no listen. I've been working with Camp Harlem, as most of you know, the finest of the URJ camps since 1963, and we're now in the third generation of my family going there. And in fact, my granddaughter has on her phone a thing of counting down the days until she goes back to camp. So it is hugely impactful and informative. So, speaking of things that are impactful, informative, you write, quote, "How does a synagogue, church, or mosque become a moral compass? How does a friend, relative, or public figure become a moral mentor?" Unquote. It's a great line, and I was reminded when I read that of a comment by the late Rabbi Jonathan Sachs about people who have, instead of textbooks, they have text people, TEXT, text people, which I thought was a great line. Who are the text people in your life, Chuck? Who are those people who formed you, mentored you?
Yeah. Well, one of the those is on the cover of the book. That's a picture of the philosopher Martin Buber and his teaching of I and Thou. So Martin Buber, if we had more time, I'd love to talk more about what I and Thou means. But it's also, there's a brief description in the book. Powerful mentor. Um, Rabbi Jacob Rothschild, who was the rabbi of the Temple in Atlanta, was a mentor. He was my teacher as a kid.
Mm.
I was in his confirmation class, and our listeners can Google Jacob Rothschild and learn about his extraordinary leadership in civil rights in Atlanta in the 1950s and 60s, culminating with the bombing of the temple in Atlanta. After ordination, I worked with Rabbi Roland B. Gittleson
Oh, right.
in Boston,
Awesome.
Temple Israel. Yeah. And I write about Roland, a powerful individual who became known nationally with his memorial sermon at the cemetery in Iwo Jima. Also worth a good look and a good read. That brief memorial sermon is available to listeners on wherever they do their searching. So very, very important individual. And then my father, who was executive with the Anti-Defamation League, and what he taught me about anti-Semitism, and more important about living. And then I read about my mother, who was quite a was quite dependent, and in her early years, dependent on my dad, and then when my father died at a young age, I watched my mother become more and more resilient in her 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s and even well into her 90s. This was a woman who looked to others to do things for her. And then as she grew older, she was doing things for her peers. Quite extraordinary. That lesson was that we can build resilience. We may not feel that we're as strong as we would like to be, say in middle age or even later. But it's never too late to build that resilience. So those are some of the of my mentors. Fortunately, I have others as well.
No, that's really lovely. Thank you. It's always fascinating to see, who are those people who really, looking back, help form who we are now at this stage of our lives. And you learn a lot about people. And just if you want to, just reflect upon your relationship with Israel.
I'd love to talk about that. I mean, it's bitter. It's difficult. I mean, Israel is sweet. What's happening now is bitter. So it's a bittersweet conversation. Let me start by saying that Israel is permeates my soul. It permeates my bones. I was there for the first time as I turned 16. I was up in the Hula Valley when it was malaria infested in the 1950s.
Wow.
Yeah, and I read about eating soup in that early kibbutz,
right.
where there's a fly in the soup, we throw out the soup. The second time, there's a fly in the soup, we take out the fly and eat the soup. Third time around, the fly, the soup, everything we eat. I mean, that's the kind of life that it was. So I have tremendous amazement, and there's radical amazement, Heschel's radical amazement, with what Israelis have done, large and great and less than great. So jumping to today, all the problems of Israel are coming home to roost. They've been worked around and buried, and they surface from time to time, but people go on living their lives, and Israel has been able to navigate around those obstacles. Suddenly, because of a combination of circumstances that you could call the perfect storm, the political and economic situation, the fact that Bibi Netanyahu was able to pull together a coalition that, with 30,000 votes in this country of millions had gone another way, they wouldn't have the coalition. All kinds of mistakes and good fortune for some causes perfect storm. And this is an opportunity for a group of people, settlers, ultra-Orthodox extremists, and messianic nationalists, an opportunity for those groups to accomplish in this window, and they see it as a window, everything that they've been yearning for. And that's the horror. So I always try to look for the silver lining. I'm heartened by the numbers of people and the variety of people that have taken to the streets and protesting, and people all over the world of good faith who are joining with them. I believe that they are going to accomplish some kind of compromise down the line. I can't see this going fully forward. It might, but and if it does in the short term, it is my hope that Israelis will right the ship, even if we have the worst case in the short term in the coming weeks. I believe that the coalition won't hold for a long term, and that Israelis who thought that they were voting in the right direction will see the light, and next time around will do better. That's my hope. Short term, this is very, very painful, and it is the very existence of the state is at risk here.
We're speaking with Rabbi Chuck Kroloff and reflecting on his new book, Open Our Eyes, Moments That Shape Our Lives. Chuck, I know you said it's available on Amazon. The website, where if somebody wants to go, is there another website that they can order this book on?
Yes, they can go to Barnes & Noble, of course, and to booklocker.com. That's booklocker, one word, .com, also available.
In the middle of this book, up pops Norman Cousins. And see, you laughed. And this idea of you channel a little Nachman of Bratslav on joy and the power of humor and the power of laughter. Some people who may say, well, what is Norman Cousins doing here in the middle of this book? So talk to me about Norman Cousins.
Yeah. Well, as I study and teach and preach, I like so many rabbis, and I know this is true of you as well, Richie. We pull from lots and lots of directions. And Norman Cousins, who's one of the the great writers and I think popular thinkers of our last century, but he was in the hospital, very serious. He writes about how he just could not deal with how the hospital was constantly, and the doctors and nurses and techs were constantly invading. He couldn't sleep for 10 minutes.
Right.
He puts up a sign, bloodletting once a day, 8 a.m. only. It's his humor, and it's also his imposing himself. I don't know whether he had an advocate then. We all need an advocate if we're in the hospital. And then he ordered up Groucho Marx movies, and he watched comedies, and he became convinced that laughter helps to heal. That was later substantiated in scientific testing. And I do something if I'm down or distressed or find myself a little grouchy, I will put on physically a smile. I will force myself to smile. I'll do that right now. Okay, it's a forced smile. That wasn't supernatural, although I'm happy to be here. But studies have shown that smiling, whether naturally or even forced, creates a situation where your muscles and the rest of your body respond and create a lighter and more comfortable state of mind.
Right.
So here comes Cousin. One of the great things about being Jewish, Richie, is that we do draw from many, many sources. I'm deeply impacted by Torah, Midrash, Talmud, Jewish philosophy, but I'm also profoundly impacted by the folk songs of Pete Seeger, and the writings of Norman Cousins. If we Jews are anything, it's we're eclectic. We're pulling from lots and lots of directions, and what a blessing that is to be open. And here again, I'm radically amazed on a long-term basis, long-term, decades, lifetime, if you will, by the teachings of Norman Cousins and Martin Buber and mentors that I've referred to. They're coming at us from lots of different directions. So what I encourage the reader to do is to step back and to ask questions like these. Who who have been the most important influences during my life, and what am I still carrying with me? What do I still take with me? What moments in my life have are still powering me? I refer to the fact that we were at the White House, had the privilege of being at the White House for the signing of the Israeli-Egyptian peace accord, and that we were in that moment where we were dancing in the portico there at the White House till 1 a.m. Just Terry and me and a couple of other couples, and I write about it in the book. I go back, but so that's a nice moment, and the White House is cool and so forth, but it's still living with me. Terry and I continue to dance from time to time, and that time in the White House still invests me and supports me and gives me joy, even decades later. And just last year, we were having dinner outside in one of the shacks on the Upper West Side of New York, and there was a violinist, or I'm sorry, a saxophonist. He was playing Terry's, and I said, we danced at the White House. Let's dance on West 68th Street. And we got up and did that. So here's an experience, a moment from that would have been 40 plus years before that impacted us right there last year, and we danced. So keep the joy going. Don't a joyful moment can nourish you and power you forth at other times as well. Even as I speak to it about it right now, I'm feeling excited, enthusiastic.
No, you could tell on.
That's why I'm encouraging the readers to pick up on these moments of their life and let them continue to live and burst forth.
Well, that's why there's this. There's so many things being written now about as we get older, to incorporate the sense of gratitude in our own life. Before we run out of time, I want to just focus and ask you to comment on this wonderful, towards the end of the book, section called "Growing into the Sunset," and you talk about this idea, the Jewish concept of shleimut, of wholeness, as we age. Talk to me about your sense of shleimut as we enter the third, fourth stages of our life.
Right. Well, shleimut has the same root meaning as shalom, and most of your listeners know the word shalom, meaning peace. It's comes from derived from the same word. So shleimut goes a little bit further than peace. Shleimut suggests wholeness or completeness, and as we age, if we can bring the pieces of our lives together into some kind of meaning, where it's beautiful for ourselves, but it also has a transcendence. It has a sense of it's connected to something greater than ourselves. So for me, shleimut, wholeness, completeness, is in the I and thou relationship of Buber. It's in a feeling as we grow older that, hey, I've accomplished what I want, what I hope to do in my professional life, not everything, but a lot. That our family, with its warts and with its challenges, every family has its challenges, but our family is strong and robust, and supportive of each other as best they can, and we support each other, and that we're also doing our part to help make the world a little better place. Bring all those pieces together and say, hey, it's starting to fit together. And maybe it does have something to do with something greater than myself. That's the sense. It's a peacefulness of the parts starting to fit together. Now, it's not going to be perfect, and there are going to be rough edges, and some of those pieces won't fit. But if you have a sense that it's mostly together, and that you've navigated through whatever challenges have been brought to you, and that whatever challenges some of us create ourselves in our lives, to sit back, to smile, to relate, to connect, and to believe that, yes, the world is basically good, and that we can move together in a sense of goodness and wholeness and peace.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you very much. This is a great coda. The book, Open Our Eyes, Moments That Shape Our Lives, Rabbi Chuck Kroloff, Emeritus Rabbi of Temple Emanu-El, Westfield, New Jersey. Chuck, thank you very, very much.
My pleasure.
For your time, and really just stay safe and stay healthy, and just take care of yourself. And thank you very, very much.
Thank you. A joy to be with you. Appreciate it so much, Richie. Be well.
My pleasure. My pleasure. To all of you, thank you once again for joining us on Seekers of Meaning, the podcast arm of Jewish Sacred Aging. And again, if you'd like to make a comment or suggestion, email me, rabbiaddress@jewishsacredaging.com. Check out the Facebook page, Jewish Sacred Aging on Facebook. If you'd like to make a donation to help support our work, go to the website, jewishsacredaging.com. Just click on the donate button. And if you're interested in sponsoring some of these podcasts, again, just email me at rabbiaddress@jewishsacredaging.com. We'll take it from there. Once again, a big thank you to our producer, Steve Lubetkin, because these podcasts are produced at the studios of Lubetkin Media Companies in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Until we see each other again, thank you very much. I'm your host, Rabbi Richard Address. In the meantime, take care of yourself, stay healthy, stay safe, and be kind. Toda Rabah, Shalom.